everybody, this is Brittany from Teach Me ABA, and I'm so excited to see you again. We're going to be continuing with our Task List 5 series covering the BCBA exam for any of you that are studying. I thankfully am no longer studying. I'm a BCBA, yay, hooray. So moving on, we're going to be talking about section E-2. Now this covers behavior analyst responsibilities to clients. This one's a little bit lengthy, but it is very, very important because as we discussed, we're going to be talking about the professional and ethical compliance code for behavior analysts. This is really important, especially if you want to continue working in the field. So, as behavior analysts, we have the utmost responsibility to conduct ourselves and engage in behaviors that are in the best interest of clients. But who exactly is a client? Well, a client is, within the scope of ABA, is a person that is being provided with behavior analytics services. So this means that they are the direct recipient of these services. They can be a parent or a guardian of that recipient. They can be an organizational representative. They can be a private or public organization, a firm, or even a corporation. So it's really good to identify what exactly is a client that you are working with. Now moving on to accepting clients. Behavior analysts can only provide services to individuals or those entities that fall within a behavior analyst education, training, experience, available resources, and organizational policies. Additionally, behavior analysts should only be accepting clients that they have the resources for, such as also having the time and the energy for them to provide effective services. Now moving on to responsibility. When providing ABA services to any individual or those involved parties, it's important to consider the hierarchy of priorities for each relationship. Now what I mean by that is that the client who is the beneficiary of these ABA services should be up at the very top of your priorities list, with the priorities and the benefits of other stakeholders being secondary. The needs of the client always remain number one. So for example, let's say that we have a client that's slightly overweight, but doesn't want to interfere with their ability to contact reinforcers, and a parent wants us to work on increasing exercise. We want to target this if the client also feels that this is a valued goal, because remember, they are priorities, so they need to be included in this process. If the client would prefer to work on other things to improve their life, such as vocational skills, then we would want to hold the priorities be what exactly that client says. They say, hey, I actually want to work on this, and we have to respect that. Up next is consultation. What this means is that behavior analysts arrange for consultations or referrals that are in the best interest of their client. This can only occur when the client has given consent, meaning that they have provided a signature on a document that says, hey, I don't mind getting a referral, or if you can arrange a consultation, that would be awesome. Behavior analysts are more than happy to be obliged and collaborate with other professionals as well, should a client request it. Let's talk about third-party involvement in services. Should a behavior analyst work with a third-party entity, the behavior analyst must make it known what their role is within the relationship of having a third-party interest, and all of that falls within the scope of holding true to the Behavior Analyst Certification Board and the Compliance Code. Should there be a risk that occurs, a behavior analyst needs to notify those appropriate individuals that I just mentioned. A client also needs to be prioritized. So if the third party is doing something that goes against what the behavior analyst is recommending, then the behavior analyst actually does have the right to terminate services. For instance, let's say that there is an occupational therapist that is recommending to parents that they should hug a child contingent upon a problem behavior. It's the responsibility of the behavior analyst to explain to all parties involved the ramifications of such a recommendation, and collaborate and find maybe an alternative and an agreement that works best for the outcomes of this client that you have in mind. Rights and prerogatives of the client. So the rights of the client are priority to a behavior analyst. We've already mentioned this time and time again. But they need to be informed of their rights, and they should be provided all of this information at the onset of treatment. Behavior analyst needs to make it clear how the client can address their concerns, the efficacy, and the ethical implications of said treatment. This includes providing clients with information for the accrediting bodies, being the BCBA, if they need to form a complaint. Behavior analysts must also receive informed consent for any form of electronic recording, whether it's an interview that they've recorded, service delivery sessions, and it needs to have a specified purpose. Should it be requested, a behavior analyst must provide their current credentials. Clients have the rights to effective behavioral treatment. Therefore, behavior analysts must constantly work to ensure that behaviors are changing in the desired ways that they discussed with that client and their entities. Maintaining confidentiality. This is important because we don't want any of our clients' information getting out there into the public, right? We need to keep everything secure. So we need to take precautions that protect the confidentiality of those considered our clients. These precautions are discussed at the start of a relationship, even before these services begin. Behavior analysts can only discuss data about the client if it's a student, if it's a research participant, if it's even your supervisee and employees for scientific and professional purposes. It's the only time, unless it's explicitly specified in any other form. Consent also needs to be provided for the client to be able to even share this information themselves to other contacts. We must never ever share any identifying information about a client or a supervisee on any social media platform. It's especially tough when we have a social media world around us, but know that your behavior analysts never ever share any information about their clients on social media platforms. Maintaining records. So behavior analysts must maintain confidentiality when creating, storing, accessing, transferring, and even disposing of records that are under their control, no matter what the medium is. And by this, I mean whether it's electronic, it's automated, or it's written. Records must be saved for a minimum of 7 years, and then you also actually need to organize and dispose of the records in accordance with local laws, regulations, corporate policies, and organizational policies that are in compliance with the compliance code. Up next is disclosures. The only time that a behavior analyst can disclose information about a client is when they are mandated by law enforcement or for a valid purpose that they're trying to obtain funding for behavior analytic treatment. Valid purposes for protecting a client from harm, obtaining consultation, or attempting to provide services to clients, and obtaining payment for such services. Those are the only times where that's okay. And these limitations and regulations should be discussed at the onset of a relationship with said client. Treatment and intervention efficacy. So what this means is that a behavior analyst must always advocate for the client's rights and for the most effective treatment, which are socially valid and significantly supported. If there is more than one scientifically supported treatment that is being presented, it's very important that we select the treatment based on cost effectiveness, efficacy, any risk or side effect that may happen, or adhering to client preferences. All those things need to be taken into account before moving forward. Documenting professional work and research. Behavior analysts must document all of their professional work in detail and in a quality manner that consists with best practices and with the law. The detailed information must remain organized, and they should, if they need to at a later time, it needs to remain organized and detailed, because if another professional comes in and will take over your case, or there's a transition that needs to happen, those individuals need to have access to this and they need to be able to read it. Up next is going to be records and data. Basically, a behavior analyst must retain records and data for at least 7 years. We've already mentioned this before, unless otherwise required by the law. The compliance code must always be adhered to when maintaining, creating, storing, or disposing of these records and this data in accordance with the applicable laws and the regulations and the policies that we've discussed. Now, while I know this is lengthy, please hold on. We're almost towards the end, but it's very important, especially for anyone that is going to be a BCBA like myself. You need to go through every bit of this in a good amount of detail. So contracts, fees, and financial arrangements. So contracts between behavior analysts and their clients needs to be outlined, and it's the responsibility of all the parties the way that this behavior analytics service is going to be provided. And the behavior analyst needs to, under the compliance code, follow through with all of this. The contract states the billing arrangements, their fees. It can never be misrepresented, so you have to make it as clear as possible. Should any issue ensue in regards to funding changes, it needs to be discussed and resolved with said client. Accuracy in billing reports. So when documenting the amount of time and the billing that a behavior analyst is going to set forth with that client, they need to indicate the services provided, the fees allocated with that, and then the information of the provider, meaning that any other descriptive information that you might have with this particular relationship needs to be stated. And moving on with that, we actually have referrals and fees. So behavior analysts must never receive any sort of money or gift for professional referrals. This means that, again, if you are working outside of your own scope of knowledge and you need to refer a client to someone else, you need to provide all of this information, and you need to provide how that relationship is stated between the two of you, the behavior analyst and whoever that referral is, and how that was created. You need to specify that moving forward with that referral. Last but not certainly least is interrupting and discontinuing services. Should a behavior analyst have to do this? Of course, we want to avoid it at all costs because we don't want to have any disruption to the service for a client. But should anything happen, a behavior analyst needs to make all efforts to continue services. Qualifications for termination of services are that the client requests the discontinuation of these services, the client is negatively affected by these services, the client is not benefiting anymore from these services, or the best case scenario is that your client actually no longer needs your services. Remember, we always want to work ourselves out of a job. We want to make ourselves disappear overall because that means your client has gained a lot of independence and a lot of skills. But these stipulations need to be outlined at the onset of treatment. So once again, this needs to be made clear at the onset of this relationship. Lastly, a behavior analyst must never, ever, ever abandon their client or even their supervisees. That should never be happening. This does not mean that we are not, it's not ethical for us to end relationship with these individuals. It just means that they must be done in a systematic manner. It can't just be one day I'm here, one day I am not. A behavior analyst needs to make all attempts to transition either the client or the supervisee in an easy way, the most easiest way you can think of. Now, once again, I know this has been a lengthy video, but trust me, ethics are very important to behavior analysts in the field of ABA. So if you have any comments or questions, please have them below. If not, I look forward to seeing you next week.